Hello, everyone. Finally, we're here, and we're happy to welcome you to our series of educational webinars where we talk about different details of the surrogacy programs and of the services that we provide. My name is Nadia, and I will be here with you tonight. And first of all, I would like to introduce the topic of our webinar and our speakers. So today we're going to talk about the peculiarities of exit process for British and Irish citizens in the surrogacy programs. And we have two special guests who will help us to get into the details of this process. Firstly, we're happy to greet our partner. She's attorney at law. She's also a family law, fertility treatment law specialist, inheritance law specialist, and mediation specialist. Our second speaker here is our senior coordinator, Olha Grinchenko. She's PhD in biology, senior coordinator of International Department for Customer Servicing at IVMED Center, at Medical Center IVMED and IVMED Family Agency. And they will both be happy to answer any questions that you have and also to provide you with some valuable pieces of information on the surrogacy programs. So what's so special about this webinar today? What can you expect to hear? So firstly, our today's special guest is our partner lawyer. So you have the unique possibility to hear the attorney firsthand, to get the information directly from the specialist, and also to ask the questions in our chat, and we will answer them at the end of our webinar. Secondly, we will provide unique insight into the details of the exit process. So if you are wondering how this process takes place, what are the steps that you should take during this process? So today you will get detailed information on that. Also, if you're tired of hearing general information about different countries, and we all know that all countries are different, their legislation is different, so it is important to get specific information for Britain and Ireland, precisely. This is also your chance to get rid of your doubts. You can get information and ask questions. That's basically all you need, right? Also, we have a possibility to get the professional advice directly, as our specialists are here with us tonight, and will be able to settle your doubts. Also, it is best to be informed beforehand so that when you face the situation, you're already ready to deal with it, and you can avoid legal troubles. Okay, so now here's your chance to meet our experts, and I invite our guest, Olha Danchenko, to give a short presentation. Please, Olga.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for your kind introductions. It's really a pleasure to be with you today and to talk about such important issues which all intended parents are always interested in. So how to get passport and how quickly. So I'm uploading my presentation. And it's okay, you see it?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, peculiarities of surrogacy exit process for citizens of the UK and Ireland. So, despite of the fact that both countries are very close together, so between us, even some people mix Northern Ireland and Ireland, absolutely different surrogacy exit processes. And I have divided my presentation into two parts, and we start with Ireland. With UK. In UK, fertility treatment is regulated by Human Fertilization and Embryology Acts. And if we speak about standard procedures, so not taking into account this turbulence COVID times, so the procedure is rather lengthy. So we have to be aware about it from the very beginning. So we really do our best to prepare everything in advance and to speed things up. But the intended parents should be prepared for 2 up to 4 months process, depending on availability of necessary authorities. And for all interested people, here is a link for British passport application. And to structurize information, I made this presentation like steps, guiding steps for UK exit process. So first of all, of course, we prepare all documents. And interestingly, this is the only embassy which requires color copies of all documentation. The intended parents have to complete application form, which has peculiarities. So it should be certified by persons who have known IPs for at least 2 years. And these counter signatories, they need to be British, Irish or American citizens, or of any country of European Commonwealth. And also they should know IPs personally rather than in some professional capacity. So this counter signature is really a slight headache for intended parents, and they find different solutions. Either they meet each other families who are in Ukraine. Some families decide to send back these application forms. So just to keep in mind this peculiarity of counter signature. About other documentation. So you see this picture, and it is really true. UK embassy or Ukraine citizenship procedure requires a bunch of documents, a box of documents. And here are the main of them. So personal documentation of the intended parents, like passport, classical information, proof of nationality, residency forms, marriage certificate, etc. Baby photographs, according to requirements set forth in link which I showed you on previous slide. So with ears and with necessary size, so just to follow up these requirements. DNA testing is obligatory and should be done in one of licensed laboratories. So it cannot be any laboratory at the discretion of the IPs or some Ukrainian labs, so only accredited. Surrogacy agreement with the surrogate mother, baby's birth certificate, official birth certificate, which is issued by Ukrainian registry office. And in parallel, TLC office also would require medical birth certificate, which has nothing to do actually with birth certificate, but it's just a paper issued by maternity hospital confirming the fact of birth by the surrogate mother. And its original is submitted to Ukrainian registry office, and so the lawyer helping IPs from UK with surrogacy exit process should not forget to make a photocopy of this document, because the original goes. Special focus should be done on documents from the surrogate mother. And this is something that can be really prepared in advance, not to lose time after birth. The embassy would like to see birth certificate of surrogate mother, as she is considered to be legal mother of the child, and we have to prove her marital status, which should be single or divorced. If she is single, it's easy situation, then only birth certificate. But if she is divorced, the lawyers have to work on documentation conforming this, like court decree or certificate on divorce and information about change of maiden name, etc., and everything with apostilles. And UK authorities are also happy to see as much documentation from medical side as possible. It is very good to have copies of all ultrasounds with pictures and with descriptions, and all routine checkups of the surrogate mother and discharge of maternity hospital. So also everything with translation into English. And another nuance of documentation for UK embassy is that they have to make sure that the surrogate was paid reasonable costs for the process. And she should sign schedule of all payments she received throughout the surrogacy program. And then we move to step 2. So when this bunch of documents is ready, the intended parents can make an appointment with TLC, because the documents, not for urgency, but for standard passport, is submitted to a TLC visa application center. And previously it was only possible by email, but now it is also very good that intended parents can make application online and already see the date of their appointment. And step 3 is submission of documents to TLC. So the documents can everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay. The documents which I stated are mandatory, and TLC will not take application without them. But sometimes TLC would like to have to see some additional paperwork, and in such a case, no appointment will be needed. So the intended parents just can get these additional documents and submit without making an appointment. Then step 4, documents move to HMPO, Her Majesty's Passport Office of UK. And this HMPO contacts the intended parents to confirm receipt of documentation and let them know if this documentation is sufficient, or again, they, in the view of HMPO, some information is still missing. And this information can be, or this data can be also transmitted to HMPO through TLC office in Kiev. And then when documents luckily have been signed off, it's a great relief for intended parents, so they can look for interview, for a message from interview department who will be in touch with the intended parents. But if they are impatient, they can try to speed things up and can call to HMPO interview department and ask themselves if it's possible to have the date of such interview. And experience of my clients in past say that if interview is done directly in UK, for example, if the intended father, not speaking about COVID times, of course, in general situation, if the intended father is ready to make a trip to UK in person, his interview will be set closer to the dates. And if interview will take place in Kiev, so this interview can be appointed in 2 weeks or so. And the intended father has to attend the interview in person. But for intended parents who are very concerned or anxious about this interview, we can say that it is not so, they should not take it so seriously. So it's just like a formality. At the interview, only basic information is checked, for example, personal information, email, phone number, names, etc. Some general questions about the family and the babies. So not getting into deep details. So again, it's just like a small formality to make sure that the file has been done correctly. And step 6 is a very exciting one. So passport is printed within 48 hours and sent either to UK address very quickly in 2 days or in Ukraine. So in diplomatic way, it takes about 2 weeks, and that is why the times for issuing the UK passport are rather lengthy. And we had in experience cases when, for example, some friends or grandmother was ready to pick up passport at UK and bring to Kiev and pick up her grandchildren very quickly. And step 7, home time. So that is about classical UK process. And what we survived in past months was COVID-19 situation. And new urgent process became possible due to lobbying of prominent Natalie Gamble Associates Law Office. And last weekend, I had the special honor to participate in Reproductive Law International Congress, which was transmitted online from Kiev. And Natalie Gamble personally took part in this Congress, and she told us about the details of this process. So now emergency passports are issued in 1 to 3 weeks. So very much faster than in standard circumstances. We do not know how long it will last because now the UK is still in red zone, so we're just waiting. So some time will come when the process will get back to standard one. But now the intended parents have a preference, and they can use this urgent process of getting emergency passport for their babies born in Kiev or in Ukraine. And Natalie Gamble told that she is coordinating list of parents who need urgent help, so that the embassy knows in advance whose babies of which parents are due in the nearest future. And British embassy, so in this situation not TLC, is helping with emergent entry permission. And a few words about the procedure after getting back home to United Kingdom. So that is not the end, and some more steps need to be done. As I told, in the UK, surrogate is considered to be legal mother of the child. And if she is married to her husband as the father, so of course it is much better to cooperate with non-married surrogates in UK surrogacy process. And to legitimate parental rights of both parents, parental order, so-called parental order is needed. So it resolves parenthood and registers UK birth for the child. And it is done after the intended parents get back home with their child or children. What does the UK court want to know in this parental order procedure? Biological connection with at least one of parents or DNA test results, surrogate consent, full and free, only after 6 weeks after birth, notarized and of course translated into her native language, and authorization of payments. So the surrogate should sign once again a schedule of payments, so which amounts she received, regular payments, final compensation, and some extra payments, for example, for clothes, for transport expenses. So the agency which is in charge of surrogacy process for UK should be very careful with calculating and making breakdown of all costs which surrogate received. And of course, the UK court would like to make sure that there was no exploitation. And here is a scheme which I found, and it reflects documentation, special documentation, which should be filed for UK court in order for the court to issue this parental order in favor of the intended parents. And this documentation is Form C51, which is prepared by the intended parents, rather long form, and we have to translate it into Ukrainian for our surrogate mother. And when she reads it carefully, she should sign 2 more documents 6 weeks after birth: consent form and acknowledgement form. And we are familiar with these forms and know how they look like and how they should be issued, because they are typical UK forms which are not so easily accepted by Ukrainian notaries. So we found some kind of balance, and we have already experienced how to formulate these pieces of documentation in order to satisfy the requirements of both Ukrainian legislation and UK court requirements. And now we move to surrogacy access process for citizens of Ireland, which, as I said, is almost completely different. So only some things are in common. About legislation, it is regulated by Irish Nationality and Citizenship Act and Passport Act. And in determining whether a child born outside Ireland is Irish citizen, it is necessary to establish whether the child was born to Irish parents, because only a parent or guardian may apply for travel document on behalf of Irish citizen child. And speaking about legal mother of the child, in the view of Irish legislation, it is the same situation as in UK and many other European countries. So the woman who gives birth to the child, in our case, the surrogate mother, is the legal mother of the child, even if her eggs were if the eggs were provided by intended mother or by egg donor, so no matter. Surrogate is considered to be legal mother of the child. And under guardianship of Infants Act of Ireland, she is also the sole guardian of this baby. And speaking about legal father situation is slightly different to UK. So to identify legal father of the child, the surrogate's marital status must be determined in first line. And if the surrogate is married, her husband is presumed by law to be father of the child, unless the contrary is provided on the balance of probabilities. But if the intended father is genetic father of the child, it is possible to overcome this presumption of paternity and to allow the intended father to be recognized as legal parent of the child. And this is different to UK surrogacy process. So for couples from Ireland, it is possible to cooperate with married surrogate, but keeping in mind the nuance that her husband should also cooperate, and at the end he should be available, he should know all details of the process, and he should be prepared to come to the notary and sign all necessary paperwork. And if the surrogate is not married, situation is much easier, because if the intended father is the genetic father of the child, which is of course the case, then the intended parents may recognize his paternity on receipt of reliable DNA evidence. And now practical details, so practical requirements, how application for travel documents from Irish couples work in reality. Primary attention is paid in Irish exit process to DNA. So very strict requirements to DNA. DNA samples shall be taken by suitably qualified independent third parties, so says the Irish law, and I will explain in more simple words what it means. And all people, all participants, so the intended father, the child, and the surrogate, they all should be personally present at the appointment. And even COVID times didn't change anything. So even in travel lockdown, the embassy required participation and travel of the surrogate mother to DNA appointment. And there is a special service in Ireland, or more paternity service, which assists the intended parents with finding an appointment with appropriate sample taker. And in Ukraine, there is only one laboratory, testing laboratory, which is accredited to do DNA testing for Irish embassy. It is a laboratory of Dr. Yuri Zasieda, and only he can do this for Irish embassy. And if he is not available, there is a great disaster for all Irish families, because they really get stuck here. And peculiarity of DNA sampling for Irish process is that even the doctor has to sign affidavit stating his profession, explaining how he was satisfied to identify the persons given samples. He should confirm that he placed the samples in secure containers and transmitted each sample direct to testing laboratory and did not give it to persons being sampled. And he also has to describe by what method the samples were forwarded to the laboratory. And as for package of documents, for rest of documents except for DNA, which should be submitted for Irish consulate, here is the situation less difficult than for UK citizens. So not so many documents and no color copies as needed. Just basic documentation. Baby's birth certificate, of course, a copy of surrogacy agreement with surrogate, certificate of genetic link from fertility clinic, documents on marital status of the surrogate, and declaration from the surrogate confirming that she does not have any parental rights with regard to the children she delivered. So it is standard document which is filed for Vital Statistics Office of Ukraine, and just the same document goes to Irish Embassy. And about not usual documents which are needed for Irish exit process is affidavit from the surrogate to the family court. So this affidavit should be prepared in two languages, and it's rather lengthy document of about 11 items. and it describes in details her participation in surrogacy process. And with this affidavit, she freely gives consent to samples being taken from the babies to DNA testing. And she also gives consent for issuing emergency travel certificate for the baby and taking the baby out of Ukrainian jurisdiction. And she also gives express consent for court applications regarding the baby guardianship and custody in favor of the intended parents. And one more special document is affidavit of independent lawyer. So Irish surrogacy exit process requires participation of independent Ukrainian lawyer who is isolated with fertility clinics, who must not have any connection to surrogate mother and the intended parents. And in this affidavit, the lawyer confirms that affidavit signed by the surrogate mother, was signed by surrogate mother in his presence, and that before the signature, the lawyer went through the draft with the surrogate and confirmed that it was fully read by her in her native language, and that the lawyer is absolutely satisfied that she understood its contents and swore the entirely document voluntary. And upon this application, the passport is issued for baby born to Irish citizens. But the passport process is not so long. So in reality, it takes about 1.5 months. And this was not changed in COVID because anyway, as you saw, it is emergency passport in standard situation and in COVID too. And all these requirements concerning DNA testing, they were kept in COVID timing. And there is still something to be done after getting back home to Ireland. Not the same as for UK citizens, so not parental order. Here we speak about guardianship process. And for this process, 2 affidavits are needed again. The same affidavit of the surrogate, but this time she confirms that the court documents were duly served to her by post, and that she consents to all court applications brought by IPs seeking parentage and guardianship and custody in respect of their child. And independent lawyer is needed for this second occasion too, confirming the surrogate signed affidavit in full, free, and informed basis. And even now we hear from Irish lawyers that it should be done in 2 months, and sometimes at the end of guardianship process, even in 2 years after baby birth. Can you imagine? Some more documentation from surrogate and independent lawyer is needed, and we already had cases where we had to physically search for surrogates whose contacts were lost by agencies within these 2 years. So for surrogacy process for Irish citizens, it is very important to fix with surrogate from the very beginning that she should stay in contact and inform about all changes in her details, even a long time after birth, until this guardianship extensive process is finally ended and the intended parents are considered to be legal parents and guardians of the baby, both the father and the mother. This is almost the end what I wanted to tell you about peculiarities of surrogacy process. And kindly note, these materials, of course, are not intended to replace legal consultation. And anyone who is thinking about becoming involved in international surrogacy should seek expert legal advice for each individual case. Thank you very much for your kind attention. So we are ready to answer all questions.
Thank you, Olga, for your presentation. I'm sure it was very insightful, and I'm sure that our viewers have heard a lot of pieces of useful information. So, and we have some questions in our chat we're going to answer right now, okay? So the first one, hi, which vaccinations do you do for a child? Is it possible to follow our country's vaccination calendar? So this first question is for our senior coordinator, Olga. So could you please tell us? Please turn on your sound. We cannot hear you. Yeah, thank you.
Hello. Our delivery hospitals have provide vaccination with tuberculosis vaccination and hepatitis B vaccination in delivery hospital and vitamin K. But we recommend for patients in case of they cannot do revaccinations with same manufacturer of this vaccine. If patient cannot repeat vaccine in her country, maybe the better if you start vaccination in at home. But if you want, we can do tuberculosis vaccine and hepatitis B vaccine in our delivery hospital. And before flying home, for all our child, we do injection of vitamin K.
Thank you very much for your answer. The next question was partially covered by the presentation, but still. Hi, I'm worried about the exit process during the coronavirus condition now. Our childbirth is expected in October. How much time do you think it will take? Olga, can you please comment on this one?
Unfortunately, we do not know from which country the question comes, but I suppose that it will take about 1 month, depending on the circumstances, of course. Because for UK, we have emergency travel procedure 1-3 weeks, and for Ireland also up to 1 month. So let's calculate it and summarize like 1 month period.
Thank you. Our next question is, my husband and I are thinking about items that we will need after the childbirth. Are there any baby essentials provided for the baby after the discharge, like weighing scales, sterilizers, bottles, nappies, baby food? Olga, could you comment on that one?
Yes, in delivery hospital, we will provide you with all of need for your baby, and with bottle, with nappies, baby foods, etc. After discharge, you will have all of your need, sterilizer, baby changing table, baby stroller, and but after discharge, you can buy bottles, nappies, baby food in pharmacy or in our markets, and your personal coordinator will be happy to help you with this.
Okay, thank you. Do you cover all necessary paperwork? Will you take care of the translations requested by the authorities? So I think this question is if IVMED covers the translations of the documents.
Yes, usually we translate all documents, what you need for receive child birth certificate, and all documents what you need for embassy, and for receive document, travel documents.
If the child feels bad, what should we do? Can we visit a doctor in the clinic?
If child feel bad, firstly, you call for your personal coordinator. Personal coordinator arrange for your ambulance, and or if this situation is not acute, we arrange for you visit to doctor in this day or next day.
Thank you, Olga. Which documents need to be done by patients during the exit process? So, Olga, this is kind of a general question for you here about the documents needed.
For exit process,
Yeah.
The birth certificate for all countries, of course, and documentation which is required for passport. So it's depending on the country. Surrogacy agreement, DNA testing, and personal documents of the intended parents, their passports, marriage certificate. And sometimes, as you saw, information and documents from the surrogate mother on her marital status, and for UK also payments conditions, and all payments which were done to the surrogate should be confirmed. So it's different, actually, difficult to summarize depending on the country. But anyway, we inform the intended parents in advance at the stage of pregnancy, so closer to middle of pregnancy, or what they should prepare. And we also start our Ukrainian part in order to make process as smooth as possible after baby birth. So the intended parents should not worry. We provide individual advice what is needed.
Thank you very much for your answer. Also, I'm wondering which services you provide after the childbirth. Olga, could you explain?
Firstly, when our patient come to our country, we provide accommodation for biological parents, general support. We prepare all need documents for childbirth certificate obtaining, and all documents what you need for embassy, all package of document. Arrangement of consultations of neonatologists during all whole period you stay in Kiev. In this time, not connect with coronavirus, we organize live in private apartment in maternity hospital up to 5 days. But in this period, we cannot provide the services due to coronavirus situation.
Thank you very much. Next question is for our lawyer. How much time will it take to get the child's birth certificate in Ukraine?
Thank you. So if both intended parents manage to arrive in Ukraine, it can be done rather quickly. So we say normal circumstances up to 5 working days. So one more nuance that the clinic needs to do a DNA test, and after that she issues a certificate on genetic link. And in the meantime, the lawyer prepares all the rest of paperwork. And now in COVID times, there have been slight changes. So if previously Ukrainian registry offices could receive the people just in live queue, so to say, now there should be done appointments. And depending on the time when we get this appointment with a concrete registry officer, we have the date of getting birth certificate. So it is issued on the same day as the application was filed, if all documents are in good order. So we usually say roughly within 5 working days.
Okay, thank you very much. Will I be accompanied by a translator during my visits to legal entities in Ukraine? So, Olga, could you?
Yes, of course. So during all of your visits to legal entities in Ukraine, and during visits of a doctor for your home, or if you will meet with doctor in clinic, our translator will be with you all this time. And if you need something, maybe special help, our coordinator will be happy to help you with this.
Thank you. I'm from England. Do I need to adopt the child when I come home? Do you provide legal assistance during this process? Is it included in the program?
So it is not adoption itself, like Germany, for example, needs. So it is parental order process, and we provide such services as I described in my presentation, which also needs cooperation with the surrogate mother and sending a package of documents back to the United Kingdom, but not adoption. So it's officially called parental order application process.
Thank you. And last question that we have is there any document that we should prepare in advance here in Ireland before we come to Ukraine for the delivery?
Actually, for Ireland, nothing special should be prepared from the intended parent. So as long as they have valid passports and their marriage certificate, all is well. So it is our part of work. So here in Irish process, we have more tasks than Irish intended parents. So we prepare most paperwork. Nothing special is needed from them.
Okay, I think we've answered all of the questions today. So thank you very much to our speakers today for such an interesting and useful information. And we will see you again in a week with a new topic and new pieces of useful advice and information. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and see you soon.
Thank you for invitation. Keep everybody safe. Nice weekend. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.